All right, about now, 10 after 7 o'clock. We switch gears just a little bit. Today, we're joined by Minister of Labour, Small and Micro Enterprise Development, Senator Leroy Baptiste, to discuss major amendments recently approved by the Cabinet to the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act and the Maternity Protection Act. These changes are expected to significantly impact workers across TNT, introducing paternity leave, stronger severance protection, and anti-discrimination safeguards in the workplace. Minister, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Vamala.
Yes,
good
it
morning,
is.
Good morning. Good morning. And good morning to your viewership.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to be here.
So to begin, Minister, can you outline for our listeners the significance of these recently approved, Cabinet-approved amendments to the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act and the Maternity Protection Act, and tell us why are they so important at this time for the working people of Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, again, thanks again, Vamala. I want to give credit where credit is due. Not for a moment I want the population to believe it's all the Minister of Labour, Leroy Baptiste. So this is really not about me. I'm really trying to do what I've been mandated to do by the Prime Minister and her leadership. It commenced in the workers' agenda. It's part of the official policy framework of the government. And in the workers' agenda, there was a commitment made to develop, to holistically enrich, empower, and develop the way of life for our nation's working class citizens. That was a big deal, with the aim being to restore prosperity to the working class. Part and parcel of what was committed is the idea of the modernization of all the labor legislation. So it was for us to look at the legislation and see if it lines up with all the international best practices as established by the International Labour Organization. And therefore we had a responsibility to review the laws and to ensure, among other things, that whatever gaps that they are closed, that we, and in relation to the two pieces of legislation you make reference to, they are a big deal. The Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act and the Maternity Protection Act, because among other things is that we have to ensure that workers are treated fairly. We try to reduce exploitation. We try to treat with the whole gender discrimination and to bring about some kind of equality of treatment in the workplace. In the case of the Maternity Protection Act, we're talking about for the fathers also, that they too are treated and given that equality whilst at work when we have a situation of a childbirth.
So, Minister, yes. I know you spoke about this fitting into the broader policy framework of the government, but from your perspective, why was it important to address these labour laws, especially at this stage?
Well, at this stage, as we know, we are, you have, let's deal with the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act. Probably the best way to see and understand the importance of it is to look at the benefits, the actual, what gaps that we are trying to close. For example, one of the issues is the idea of redundancy. Redundancy normally speaks to surplus labor. We are now going to expand what redundancy refers to include where businesses are deemed to be insolvent or if they're under receivership. In other words, that whenever a worker loses his job, that he has protection to get some financial cushion, a financial cushion as provided by the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act. So it has expanded the redundancy clause. We have created a guarantee, or will create a guarantee for severance payments as part and parcel of it again by setting up a fund to treat with that. We will treat with a more strengthen the retrenchment procedures so that the employer could literally avoid what is provided under Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act by just simply ensuring that they don't retrench more than 4 persons at a time. And therefore, there would be no requirement to look at the retrenchment benefits. If you were to do that, the Act would not apply to 4 workers or less if retrenched. This now removes that. And even if it's 1 worker, he entitled to benefits under the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act. They have duty to report it and duty to report it not and to speak to the recognized majority union if there's one in the environment. So that again is a gap that has been closed. The right to rehire.
And Mr., how does this apply to contract workers as well?
Contract workers, that's one of the more difficult areas of law. And I want to be clear. Right. I want to be clear that this is at the AG's office, and they have all the experts to treat with some of the thorny issues to make sure that we line it up nicely. Because they are contract workers deemed to be fixed term contracts. They are contract workers that receive gratuity. So therefore, whether they receive at 20% or otherwise, and then they are contract workers, as we know. They contract in name only, but in fact, they are permanent workers because of the nature of what the employer was calling contract, i.e., they continuous contracts over years, right. And therefore those persons will be captured by the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act. So we'll have to now craft the law to make sure that is clear. The reality is, once you are working, called by any other name, when you are just a regular or permanent worker, casual worker, seasonal worker, any of these workers, you will be covered under the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act.
Yeah. Yes? A key facet of all of this is priority rehiring. Yes. I know that's another major change. How does this support job security and give retrenched workers a second chance?
Well, again, the object of it is to make the retrenchment ought to be really a need. A worker's job is how he takes care of himself and his family. It is not a favor. There's not a way to do it. You are a member of the citizen, you're a citizen of the country, and you have to be able to take care of your family. And therefore, the idea of a person being retrenched, that must be a major decision, and it must be it must be a situation that is justified. Wherever the circumstances change, the law will be amended in such a way that such workers who have been retrenched, if the circumstances change and there's any kind of rehiring, then they must be given priority. In other words, you will not be able to use retrenchment as a next device to simply terminate an employee or dismiss a worker because you want to hire someone else and create the instability in the person's life that represents. Because the burden will be, if you have to rehire a person to do the same job, there's a burden on you to prioritize rehiring the retrenched workers. And that's what the law will provide for, making mandatory in law for that to happen.
Thanks for sharing that, Minister. Mm-hmm. So let's turn a little bit now to the Maternity Protection Act. Now, this is definitely one of the most talked about changes, the introduction of paternity leave. Actually, last week on Trinidad and Tobago, today we had Ronald Fields joining us to talk a little bit about it. Now, why was it important for this government to include fathers in workplace protections?
Well, that for more reasons than one. We could talk about gender equality in a broad sense. The reality is that a child is mommy and there's a daddy.
That's right.
And therefore the daddy needs to be based on just gender equality. He needs to be taken into consideration. But more than that, from a societal point of view, we have always, it's not so much about the parents, but the child, and the child that needs to be nurtured by both parents, and to accommodate that in law. And we all speak about the necessity to have the parents, the fathers, play an active role in their child's life. And we all know about the bonding that takes place by that early involvement of the father in the child's life. Yes, so it's an opportunity to do so, promote gender equality, so that fathers will take an active role from day one. Mm-hmm. And obviously they give support to the mommy, who after bringing a child into the world, we know she needs that level of support. Yes.
So I keep going back to contract workers because it's also the voice of the people. Contract workers in both public and private sectors are now covered, right? Why was it necessary to extend these benefits to this group of workers?
Because contract workers are mummies too. And contract workers are daddies too. And they're citizens too. And we have to ensure that they all find an equal place in this Trinidad and Tobago. And so the law will incorporate it. That one is non-negotiable. Once you're a worker in this country, you would be entitled to the benefits under the Maternity Protection Act.
Minister, women will no longer be limited to maternity benefits within a 24-month period. Now, this reflects I would say, a more progressive and humane approach to a woman's health and family life. How important was this decision for your ministry?
Extremely important. Again, you wondered why the law could have been so discriminatory that you're entitled to maternity benefit, but if you happen to have a second child in 1 year, then it's no to that. And you're only once in 24 months. That was just as discriminatory. It was inconsistent with all the ILO conventions, standards, international labor standards. And therefore there was a need to bring it into alignment. Yes? Because it's just fair. If you're entitled, it's not about just the mummies and the daddies, but it's about the child. There's a child, and the child needs their parents. And we have to support the parents being able to bond with their child and support the mummy who just had a child. Doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, first possible, let it be 3 a year. The fact of the matter is that the maternity protection, we felt the need to create that, to close that gap and bring it into alignment with international labor standards to support mothers. And there are those who would argue that we ought to promote, encourage our women folk. I want to make sure my language is right.
Exactly.
Our women folk to not have to choose between whether to be a mother or to advance their career. That you can have your career and you can be a mother too. And this is to ensure the ease of making that decision. There's no burden, to ease the burden in relation to those who will want to straddle the boat, being a mummy and having a career. Yes.
Minister, let's talk a little bit about employers. Now, enforcement is always key. What mechanisms will the ministry put in place to ensure that employers comply with these new laws?
Well, we have a number of things. Number one, we're going to be looking at the fines. Right now, there are fines associated with breaching any of these acts, industrial relations offense, and the fines will be reviewed and bring in line with that which is, again, contemporary. So, for example, with the Retrenchment Act, you would have a fine that is 40 years old. We're going to update the fine. So I wouldn't talk the figures yet, but we're going to make sure that it's a disincentive to breach the Industrial Relations Act. So that's one. Two, we are also going to be looking at, we have an enforcement department, the Labour Inspectorate. We're going to empower them. And again, we're going to tweak their power to ensure that they have the wherewithal to enter workplaces, engage in a process to know whether persons are in breach of the any of the acts, the Retrenchment Act or the Maternity Act. We have a Labour Inspectorate that is empowered to do so on behalf of the minister, and they will be that much more empowered. at the end of when these amendments are put in place.
Yeah, checks and balances are really, really important.
Of course.
Minister, for workers listening right now, what should they do if they believe that their rights under these new amendments are being violated?
Well, the new amendments is not yet in place. But even the current laws, if they're being amended, there's a process, and you could contact the Ministry of Labour, Small and Micro Enterprise, and draw it to our attention. We could send persons to investigate those things immediately. There's processes involving direct involvement of the ministry, and if necessary, trade disputes could be deemed to exist, and it could go to the industrial court for enforcement. So there's a process. No one needs to allow themselves to be exploited or taken advantage of. Your rights are there, and it's for you to just. We are here, the Ministry of Labour, Small and Micro Enterprise, to treat with any notion of violations of your rights as it currently obtains, and is going to be that much better when these amendments are eventually passed.
Yeah, so that's so important that you said that. A lot of workers feel like, my employer is taking advantage of me. Where do I go? What do? I don't want to be, treated badly because I've decided to go to the ministry for it. Right. So how do they reach out to the ministry? A regular person on the street, how do we reach out to the ministry if there is some sort of injustice wherever that person is working?
There is walk-in.
Okay.
There is call-in. There's using the let me use walk-in and call-in, and surely there's the interface you have in terms of the website. I know we have some technical difficulties right now treating with, but I want to be clear that I wore a hat, a different hat at a different time, and I don't want to not encourage workers. There's always the trade unions that they could raise issues with their trade unions who are quite familiar with the processes involved in treating with any concerns. It doesn't matter that you're not in a trade union environment, but if you have a breach of your rights, you could go to any trade union who could advance your issues on your behalf if you want that help in hand. Yes? So that you have the direct approach to the ministry using whatever means, from telephone, call-ins, going, visiting the ministry, and or the social media, what have you, and or you have the trade union movements, you have industrial relations consultants. A number of any of them could assist a worker to, of course, try to do what is necessary to have your rights being enforced. That's right. But the ministry, of course, is always available to assist any worker.
I appreciate that, Minister. As I said, a lot of workers feel if there is an injustice wherever they work, sometimes, they may be treated poorly if they were to speak out about it. And it's really important to have that outlet, that sort of hotline for, people to, maybe a hotline might be a good thing going forward. Maybe that's a suggestion. Where people can feel safe and comfortable and know that there won't be any repercussions for just actually speaking out about whatever injustices they may be feeling wherever they work. And I love the ministries is open to that.
And to be sure, anytime an employer would to do anything as to harm a worker or to seek to harm or adversely affect their employment in any way as a result of their pursuing any of their rights in this law, that's an industrial relations offense, and it's punishable. And so outside of whatever it might be that the employer, for example, if the worker believes he's not being given leave, maternity leave, when she ought to be given maternity leave or paternity leave, that's one thing for him to complain. It's the next thing for having to complain for the employer to seek to victimize. That in itself draws in the whole question of the employer engaging in what translates to an industrial relations offense, and that is punishable also. So it's both the worker fighting for his or her right, that's one thing, but if any attempt to victimize the worker for bringing that to the attention of the ministry and or a trade union and seeks to now further victimize the worker, that's an offense in itself, and that could be addressed again.
So once you are a legal worker in Trinidad and Tobago, you have an outlet in order to address all of this.
Of course.
Minister, looking ahead, what other labor reforms can workers expect from your administration?
Wow.
That is a loaded one. I know.
We are looking at a lot. We're looking in literally all the labor legislation, including Industrial Relations Act, the Workmen Compensation, OSH in terms of safety. They are all being looked at currently. So we are looking really at ensuring that the working class that enjoys a safe and environment, because we believe a safe and an environment that treats with his or her needs also is a productive environment. They go hand in hand. So we want to try to make the place of work a better place and a safe place to be. And that is going to be married to what we call a productive work. And that we're going to be dealing with all together, ensuring we have and develop a productivity ecosystem that includes, of course, as of necessity, the whole issue of decent work. Yes? So it's all interrelated. Decent work and productivity. We're going to be pulling that together. We're going to be treating with other critical issues that affect labor and ministry of labor. We have under my portfolio, of course, things like small and micro enterprise development, so that work is not limited to how you perceive being an employee, but that we can look at ensuring that the creatives and the entrepreneur is supported. As you know, we are now talking about diversification strategy, and we are talking about revitalization of this our Trinidad and Tobago. No longer we are dependent on in a singular fashion oil and gas, but we have to look at how we diversify and how we encourage that. We also have under the auspices of the ministry the cooperatives, and the cooperatives is one of those sleeping giants, credit unions and the like. A $20 billion industry. These all have to come together to facilitate a better Trinidad and Tobago, sustainable economic growth, productive activities, so that the ministry is working on simultaneously on modernization of the labor, dealing with productivity issues, looking at the small and micro enterprise development, and also the role of cooperatives as we move forward to build Trinidad and Tobago in light of the leadership of the Prime Minister that is intended to make this country, I almost want to say great again, but I know that is pretty much patented
perspective. Minister, on a more personal level, you are part of such groundbreaking policy and all of this work. How does it feel to be a part of the administration that is bringing forth things like this? And that's an accomplishment for you and everything that you've worked for throughout your life?
It's been an honor, simply put. I have simple maths. This country has been involved in self-governance for about 69 years now. Of the 69 years, 53 years was run by other party. 53 years of it was run by other party. and we have very little to show for it. This country has been singularly dependent upon one source of income. And now that things have slowed down where that is concerned, we now realize that failure to diversify and all the consequences. We have a Prime Minister that is committed to ensuring that those issues are treated with once and for all. And I have the honor of being part and parcel of that team to deal with the diversification of this country, to promote the development of small and micro enterprise in a meaningful way. And above all else, is people-centered in her approach, hence why the focus on ensuring that the workers' issues, including the legislation that covers workers, that they are updated, consistent with the international labor standards. This is really an honor. Again, I want to give credit singularly in that regard to the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, Mrs. Kamala Persad Bissessar. It is really an honor to be part and parcel of this team. For 53 years, nothing was done. The last 10 years, not one piece of legislation would have been amended on behalf of workers. And now again, it falls to the UNC government to make it happen. Let me be clear too that being in office, it's tough. What we came and we met in the context of the resources to get things to do work by, it's not a nice situation. But I say this and I say that it may slow us down, what we met in the Treasury, but it wouldn't stop us. We will get it done. A term is 5 years, not 5 months. Things may seem to be, but we will get it all done. Sometimes I just want to quickly share what we have done in the context as we know it. Rejection of the imposition of 5% on workers. We have in fact kept our word in relation to the offer of the 10% on behalf of workers. And this isn't when the whole of this country knows people expected the government to say, hey, we can't do it. But you know what? We are doing it. It's hard, it's tough. But we are keeping our word to advance the interests of the working class. Yes? Stop the retrenchment of thousands of workers in places like BR and Customs, WASA. They were the chopping block. Again, so this government would have prevented that from happening as part and parcel of its workers' agenda. Again, the sky is the limit. With the number of things we are and continue to work on. And I want to assure the listening and the viewing public that the 20 items that was agreed to as part of the workers' agenda, each and every one will be achieved. Again, we may have been slowed down because of the financial reality of the Treasury, but the Prime Minister is committed to each and every one of her promises made will result in promises kept.
And Minister, finally, before we wrap up, what's your message to workers across Trinidad and Tobago who may feel a little bit uncertain about their future, especially in today's economy?
This government is have a 5-year term. Of course, the work of the opposition is to pretend each day is like if it's the last day of the government. So suddenly we would have made promises, again, as detailed in the workers' agenda and the overall UNC policy framework. And the opposition, by knowing exactly what they left in the treasury, would have been just saying to the population, wait and see if they could do X and whether they could do Y and the other, as to suggest that it's impossible because they know the mess that they left the treasury in. The reality is this, ask the population to give it time. We have time. It's not about 5 days, it's not about 5 weeks, it's not about 5 months, it's about 5 years. And we're going to use these years in a way to make sure at the end of the day, again, the promises by way of the workers' agenda is it aims to restore prosperity to the working class. And yes, it will empower and develop the way of life for the nation's working class. Some of the issues that we have been treating with, they have been there for all these years, and sometimes to build the best of homes, sometimes you have to demolish what you met and then have to look to lay the foundation and get. It takes time to see the new construction come to fruition. But I want to assure them that surely the Ministry of Labour, its focus, and let me take the opportunity to really again be thankful that the staff of the ministry have been working tirelessly to ensure that these objectives are achieved on behalf of the working class. But we are going to remain focused, and I assure them that they will see, yes, it's going to be bright again. Better days are coming in this country, I can assure the working class. Look out for when the SMEs, when that get going. That is going to be very impactful in not what we had in the past, but we're going to be doing something that is different. The cooperatives are going to get involved in it, and we're going to have a regeneration of our society in a manner that's going to result in sustainable economic development, economic growth and development for the working class and for the society at large.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator the Honorable Leroy Baptiste, Minister of Labour, Small and Micro Enterprise Development, for joining us. Very extended interview this morning. I know I had a lot to talk about, but of course we are so grateful for all the information and the time spent with us this morning. Sure. And we hope to have you on the show again.
Sure. Thank you.